just how I'm feeling, though I never wanted you another way. But baby, it's been on my mind, and you know my face can't hide it. So take my hand and hear me when I say, don't you know that I'll be there for you, with a love to get you through the night, yeah. And I'll be there for you when everything is out of sight. You got it, baby. One more time, you got to get it right and walking by this life with you. And honey, if you die, then I'ma get you by. But come on, baby, die.
Ladies and gentlemen, how's it going? I've got toddlers running around in the background. I can hear them. They're supposed to be in bed. We've done the entire pre-bedtime ritual, but in the distance, they still run. I've got my 14-year-old on it, though. He's doing a little homework, a little holding it down with the kids. My wife is still working because she's amazing. And all this is happening so we can bring you episode 74 of the Adam Makes Beer podcast. Coming to you from the depths of Cincinnati. It is the October AMA. I'm switching Q&A up to AMA. Ask me anything, baby. Ask me anything. Special focus on Brew Day practices. The last couple months, I've been doing these AMA Q&A type pods with kind of a general topic. That doesn't mean any questions that you drop in the chat that I won't take or anything like that. We'll take questions on anything. The stuff that I have built out for today, though, is focused on some of my brew day practices that I like to, some of the ways that I like to approach my brew day. And yeah, so drop those questions in the chat. It's good to see you all here. We've got people joining from Instagram to Twitch to YouTube. Go ahead and say hi. Let me know where you're tuning in from this evening. Check out the Adam Makes Beer YouTube channel if you have not. I mean, you may be listening to it right now. Check out the playlist tab. There is all sorts of educational content in there. If you are a brewer considering becoming a brewer, whether pro or amateur, dip in there, check things out. It's all about helping each other get better. Content creation is my full-time gig, bringing you educational brewing content. So if you're getting value and have the means, please consider a channel membership over on YouTube for less than a cup of coffee a month. Shout out to all my wonderful channel members. They help to keep the lights on around here. Also, sharing my Instagram, TikTok, Facebook content, all that stuff really, really helps me out. We got Bambino in the chat over on Instagram. Hello from the Good People Brewing in Birmingham, Alabama. Bambino, good to see you in here. Seattle, baby. Ryan, good to see you, man. Hope you're doing well. I'm going to be down in Alabama in November, and I'm going to be ripping off a brew day with name is slipping off the top of my head, but I've got my email. I want to say Brian, but I'm not sure. Masthead, good to see you. So yeah, tons of stuff over there. Actually, a lot of the folks, some of the folks that I'm saying hi to right now are members over on the channel. I think the YouTube homepage for Adam Makes Beer, I think they actually just updated some stuff and made it a little easier to hit join and to sign up. It is $2.99 a month. It is, like I said, if you have the means, it's a big help. So we always appreciate the support. We got Fairly Local Home Brewery hanging out from Chicago, from Chi-Town, Chirac. Should I not call it that? Some rappers I listen to call it Chirac. So anyways, what else? Adam Makes Beer news, the MB news, baby. Two things going on that front. I do have for this month, I have an amber lager brew day. That was when I was back at Cartridge. Go ahead and check that out. I like those kind of classic brew days. Some of the throwback brew days for me. They were fun to do. There are a lot of good memories, and I think especially when you pair it with a pod like today's, I think it can have some. I think it can have some benefit for people because you can see what I'm doing in the brewery. A lot of things that we're going to talk about today are fleshed out ideas of some of the things that you'll see modeled in videos like that. So make sure to hit playlist and something like Ultimate Brewery Tour, behind the scenes brewery thing, whatever. It is Amber Lager. Check that one out. That was a beer called Airborne. It was one of my favorite beers there. I just love lager, making lager, all that good stuff. Before I forget, shout out to the great and powerful Rockney Van Meter, who once again the GABF medals, they fall from the sky like so much rain for this man over his career. He hauled in another GABF medal. I don't even know how many at this point. We may be approaching dozens, but Rock took down an award for a Belgian style beer. It may have been Saison, it may not have been, but he pulled down another medal for him and the fam. He's over there brewing at Redwood, and yeah, man, beautiful stuff. So big shout out to Rock. He's been a big supporter of mine and dear friend of mine for some time. No GABF for me this year. I saw all the pictures, all the shenanigans, all of the quote unquote mental health day events that were going on. Shout out to Cody. GABF is an interesting one because I think more than any of them, CBC or any of the other conferences, I think it's a little bit more of just kind of a hangout drinking thing. You know what I mean? You can always handle it different ways. You can kind of lean on it in a way to try to do some networking, meet some folks, get some tours, things like that. My original plan for when I thought I would be going out was that I was going to try to pair up with and do some brew days with some folks out there for some content. But alas, my wife's work schedule got changed up and I was not able to do it. But ladies and gentlemen, if you thought that potentially at one point the stars would align and our paths would cross at GABF, that opportunity is coming up 2 times over. I'm going to be at the Brewers of PA, Brewers of Pennsylvania. If you have not checked out my interview with Hannah Eisen, she is director of brewing ops over at 0 Day Brewing in Harrisburg. And she is the director of ops. I believe that's the title, but she's the top dog. You know what I mean? Over there for the Brewers of Pennsylvania, their guild. And they're going to be hosting the Mid-Atlantic Brewers Symposium and Expo in Harrisburg, PA, November 2 through 4. Come on out and see your boy. I'm going to be talking. I'm going to be going to talks. You can have a beer. I can have a cocktail. We'll good time and high five. Okay? That's coming up, though. Get registered. It's the 15th right now. We're 15 days away, basically. I think something like that. So yeah, let's get it. Let's make it happen. What else? I'm also going to be at the Ohio Craft Brewers Association conference in January, the 26th through the 28th in lovely Dayton, Ohio. Register for them. It's going to be good. I'll be talking at both of them. I'm looking forward to obviously doing the talk, meeting people, networking. So yeah, get out there, check out both those events. I've done the Ohio conference before. It's always a good time. I'm excited to get out to Harrisburg. It was fun to talk to Hannah, get to know her a little bit. I want to get over to 0 Day and check them out. And then if you remember, we had from Clarion Brewing, we had, was it Clarion River or was it just Clarion? But right now I'm only remembering Instagram handles. I'm remembering the Fit Beer Witch, Devin Shellhammer Smith. She was also on the pod. So go ahead and check those two out. I'll be able to say hi IRL to both of those nice ladies coming up at that conference. So that'll be cool. But I'll be real honest, at the PA event at the Mid-Atlantic Brewer Symposium, I'm going to have spoken to 2 people there and that's on the pod. So I'm not going to know anybody. So I'm going to have to get out. I'm going to have to get out of my comfort zone. I love talking to people, but when I get into social situations, sometimes, especially like a conference thing, I have a hard time just chatting with people. So anyways, I got to get out there and do my thing. Next piece of AMB news. AdamMakesBeer.com is live, baby. AdamMakesBeer.com is live. Have you ever wanted to know? Have you ever wanted to stay up to date? Well, I've got a way. Go to AdamMakesBeer.com and you can stay up on all the happenings. You can contact me. You can dig into my blog content. If you need services, we got services. Advertising your products, making behind-the-scenes promotional content for your brewery, consultation services for your brewery and planning, or hands-on audit of your brewery SOPs. Son, let's do it. You can find out all that information on AdamMakesBeer.com. Do you want me to make a video SOPs with you in your place so you can train your people with those videos afterwards on your practices and processes? Hit me up. Reach out to me. Get in that contact page, because it has a contact page because it's a website. It makes me feel very fancy. So get over there and check it out. If you haven't, you can get a better idea of some of the ways that we can work together. The Adam Makes Beer Fantasy Football League is alive and well. My season is good so far. I feel as if I've been a little bit lucky. As always with fantasy football, it's always a blend of pain and a little pleasure when it comes to the game we know and love so much. This year it's been a bloodbath, ladies and gentlemen, with injuries, inexplicable coaching decisions, having that one player that you decided to not put in your starting lineup post 35 points. Things like that happen. But here's something that kind of blends these two topics. We're going to roll into the next bit of news. If you're looking for more time with your boy, check out the Small Town Guys podcast over there with my boy Stu and producer Jer. Typically, we're going once a week with that. Non-beer, just kind of BSing, hanging out, talking. They're 2 dear friends of mine forever. And, you know, if you don't think we're too stupid, it's just something that you can kick back and listen to. If you think it's funny, if you enjoy it, stick with it. If you don't, you don't have to watch it. But I appreciate you giving it a shout. We also have there's an Instagram, Small Town Guys Pod, I believe. But talking football, I'm also cooking up a new concept. I applied for this content creation job for NFL content, and it would have been like a part-time thing and maybe not even paid. But it was to make content for the Bengals. And it was just some random website that would put on, that was hosting it, that would put you on to do content on YouTube. And I actually applied to do it. I made a video for it and sent it off to him. And then I started thinking about it, and I'm like, what if I just did my own YouTube channel for Lions content? Because between brewing and football / fantasy football, NFL football, those are really my hobbies. And from a content standpoint, I think it's important to make content that you are passionate about. So one of my favorite things about going to the Lions Ravens game, I saw a gentleman wearing a jersey where the nameplate said waiting since, and the number was 57. That is the last time our beloved Lions won a championship. And so I have gone ahead and scooped up that name on Instagram and on Spotify. And yeah, I think I'm going to be cooking up this new waiting since 57 pod, where I'm going to be covering the Lions, kind of weekly game breakdowns, a look ahead at the upcoming week, maybe some fantasy stuff a little bit as well. It's something that I'm thinking about doing once a week, year round. We'll see how it goes. Even off-season stuff, I might have to go into like looking at a little bit of like prospecting work if you're into the rookie stuff, the draft stuff, free agency, things like that. So we'll see. But that about wraps it for the news. I would really love for you to check out those two conferences. Show them a little love. Go ahead and follow OCBA and Brewers of PA on Instagram to stay in line with all of that stuff. Speaking of segues, do you need help staying in line with all of your stuff? I wonder if my friends at Blickman Engineering can help you out. Starting a brewery is a big step. Blickman Engineering is here to help. Since 2006, they've equipped hundreds of nano breweries for success. Their new 3.5 barrel Pro Surface electric brewing system cuts maintenance and saves at least 30 minutes per brew with powerful under kettle heating. From 1 to 15 barrel brew houses to keg washers and grain mills, Blickman has what you need. Ready to go pro? Contact Filler Tom at Pro Series at blickmanengineering.com. Blickman Engineering is a proud sponsor of this channel and loves to help brewers at every stage of their journey. Tracking and managing the financial health of your brewery is a primary pillar of success. Check out my boy David Lentz at Brewed Fiscally. This man has the industry experience and skills you need so you can focus on growing your business. Bookkeeping, fractional CFO support, financial management system design, business plan review, hit up your boy. Check him out at brewedfiscally.com or shoot him an email at david@brewedfiscally.com. He's good people. There's your reads, everybody. There's your ads. Got to pay some bills. You know what I mean? Got to pay some bills. We have some questions coming in the chat. Pardon me. I didn't mute my mic. Okay. You can see there's a little ticker along the bottom of the screen. I don't know if you saw that or not, but it says, "Welcome and thanks for joining us. This is an AMA pod focused on brew day processes. Drop your questions in the chat, even if they aren't on topic. We are so glad you are here." So yeah, do that. Check it out. And I don't know who the we is. It's me. I had somebody one time talk to me about, I was working out a project. I was pitching a project to somebody and they're like, when you and your team come out, what does that look like? And I'm like, well, the team is me. Well, will your team be, will you be bringing your whole team out? And I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to be leaving the team at home. But really the team is just like my 4-year-old who made just shy of a dozen Valentine's cards for my wife an hour ago because he misses her so much while she's at work. He's adorable. But let's dip in to these questions. This first one is from Griff Reader. Griff, I don't know if I've seen you in here before. If not, I would love, it's great to see you. Welcome. If I forgot, I apologize. Hey, Adam, I am not a pro brewer, but I'm definitely interested in a career pivot. Would you recommend something like OCBC to come from Ohio who's looking to make the switch? Yeah, so he's wondering, I'm assuming you're an Ohio person. Yeah, I mean, depending on what your cash flow looks like, what your bank account looks like, I think the conference registration is $500. Then you're going to have your hotel. So I'm always very budget conscious. So, you want to make sure that it's something that fits well within your budget and you have time to do that and whatnot. I do think it would be an interesting way to go about it. If I were you, there are a range of different tracks. There's marketing stuff, there's management stuff, there's technical brewing things. I would check out that list of topics. And then they're also going to have a trade show. So you'll be able to go around and talk to raw material suppliers. And then, there's the lunch times, there's the milling around, there's the evening events, the networking opportunities. If I were you, one area where I could see things going a little bit wonky is if you were to just hit people up and be like, oh, hey, I'm thinking about owning a brewery. What do you, opening a brewery or going pro, what do you think about that? I wouldn't take it quite from that angle. I would talk to people about, there's plenty of events. People are just hanging around having a beer. Get into a group of people, introduce yourself, and just, start talking to them about, what they're excited about at work. What are the things that they love about the job? Just be like conversational with the type of questions that you ask them, and just show interest in them, like individually. So like the main idea is just be genuine and ask folks questions about what they love or frustrates them about work. Sometimes I think some pros would say, oh, well, just to go in and be like, oh, hey, I want to be a brewer, like teach me how, or don't ask anybody for favors. Can I volunteer, or, hitting up people for jobs. I wouldn't quite do that with people. I'll just be picking their brain about their experiences. There's another element of it too, where some people are just gonna be there to have a good time as well and to cut loose a little bit. And so some people might not necessarily feel like talking shop, but in general, that's kind of my take on it. If you have the scratch, you can get the swag. As Metalhead pointed out, there will definitely be swag in the trade show. So yeah, I think it's interesting, man. It might be a good option for you. I would go to the OCBA website, check out events or conference, whatever it is. Dig into the details, see if you feel as if it's a good fit. And yeah, because I know there's plenty of people that will go there as like breweries and planning, and that's not really what you're talking about. You're talking about making a career switch. But yeah, that's my take on it, Griff. I appreciate the question, man. All right, let's see here. Yeah. Metalhead wants to know if you're currently home brewing. Griff, you can pop that. Oh, I think he said yeah. Maybe you were saying yeah to him, because you're in two separate chats from me. I have Twitch and YouTube in one stream, and then I have Instagram in another stream as far as the comments go. Okay, yes, you brew at home. Good. Fairly Local Home Brewery asks, any under the radar hops or hop products that you like? Mainly a hazy brewer looking to mix it up a bit from the Citra, Mosaic, and Southern Hemisphere. Yeah, Griff, 22. Yeah, man. I mean, that's, I would say do it now rather than later. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think there could be some benefit to it. But yeah, dig into it and see what you think. So Fairly Local wants to kind of mix it up on the hazy side. Let me throw a couple of things at you. let me throw a couple of things at you. You ask about any different hops or hop products. I agree. I've had a lot of great hazy IPAs. I went to CBC a few years ago, and Crosby had like 8 hazies on the board from all these baller breweries, and you're drinking through them, and after a period of time, I don't know if it's the hop varieties, the yeast character in conjunction with those hop varietals, they can get a little samey, and maybe people are going to hate me for saying that. Maybe they're going to say, "Oh, my palate's too stupid to not, it's too stupid to not be, your palate's too bad to pull the differences." Maybe it's true, but listen, I think the downfall of this style is people fall into this rut that Fairly Local is talking about. I'll throw one curveball. Maybe it's not a curveball, but I would encourage you to mix up yeast strains. Try a different strain out that you haven't used before. That's kind of in that hazy lineage. So that might be one way to pull, a little bit different character. If you want to be going, if you want to be going outside of Citra Mosaic Southern Hemisphere, I would look at some of the products from folks like Abstracts. Not an ad, but Abstracts, hit me up. I had them on the pod a while back. There's a lot of flowable cold side hop products out there right now. I know Abstracts is not the only one. They're just the only person that I've talked to. So I would check it out. Some things out on that side. One benefit may be that you may be able to decrease some of that dry hop load. You may save some volume with that, and they have a wide range of things that are explicitly derived from hops, some things that are really just flavor additives as well. They have a wide range of things, so go ahead and check them out. Maybe look at trying some different strains for that as well, and see if you can kind of get your groove back when it comes to if you feel like you're in a rut, kind of making the same old hazy all the time. I did mute you for that cough. Here's the deal, ladies and gents. Apparently it's allergy season here in the city with no pity, because my eyes have been driving me crazy. So anyways, scratchy, itchy eyes. Not that you needed to know, or were interested, I should say. Mathau says in the chat, distillery could be another option for you. Scratches the same itch and great to have under your belt. And that's in reference back to what Griff was talking about earlier. Yeah, definitely. And also, if you're connected on the distillery side, I'm looking to make some distillery content, baby. Let's do some behind the scenes still action. I'm talking pro side stuff. If you're doing it on your own out back yonder, I can't record that. Okay. So if you're on the pro side, on the distillery side, and want to do some content, I'd love to. Let's make it happen. Fairly Local, thanks for the question. Bambino, there's a great podcast where the great and powerful Scott Janish was talking about hazy beers, and Bambino asked, how would you approach a hazy IPA for a stable haze? I would be selecting haze positive strains. Just do a quick Google search. You're going to find some strains that are going to help you throw that haze and keep that haze. Most crucial keys, I think yeast strain selection is one. Not doing any dry hopping early in fermentation do it late in fermentation, and big fat dry hops. That was one of the things that Scott Janis said in that podcast. You know, he was saying really minimum of 4 pounds on dry hop per barrel. You can do the conversions or whatever. But yeah, so haze positive strains. I typically use between 20 and 30% mixture of malted wheat and oats, which can help as well. So yeah, that would be my quick hitter on that one, Bambino. Metalhead, I'd be interested to hear how that hazy with Dulcita turns out. I've not played with that hop before. You're welcome, Fairly Local. All right. Let's dip in on the first of. I was thinking about this, and I'm like, all right. So what could we talk about as far as a topic? And I was thinking, you know, what if we just kind of walk through the brew day? Sometimes I don't realize, you know, when you've been doing something for a while, when you think about things to discuss, you can kind of forget, you know, the little day-to-day things that you do with your brew day that you just assume everybody does. But maybe that's not the case. And, you know, what we're going to talk about today is I'm not going to pitch this at you as saying that I'm the most flawless brewer ever. But these are the things that I have been. This is the practices and knowledge that I've accumulated over my 14 years. There's always more information out there. I'm always willing to learn more stuff, but this is a little bit of a distillation as of now with where I'm at with things. So let's dip into this, and let's just kind of start at the beginning of the brew day with the question, how do you prepare for a brew day? There are very few areas of my life where I am neat and tidy. When I'm getting ready to brew, when I leave the night before, I like to make sure that everything is clean and ready. This is the one area where I am organized, clean, and orderly. First of all, what that means for me is I am going to have the fermenter that I'm going to be brewing into is going to be appropriately cleaned, CIP with caustic. It's going to be appropriately rinsed. If there is an acid cycle that is due for, it will have an acid cycle, rinse, and then I will use a PAA sanitizing circulation through that tank, fully build my tank out. So my tank is going to be sanied, pressurized. The majority of the liquid's going to be dumped out of it, but there's always going to be a residual in there that you need to let drop down the walls of the tank. And then I put that tank on under pressure, under CO2 pressure of 5 psi. That way, when I come in the morning and I'm getting ready to brew, I can, 1, tell that my tank is holding pressure. 2, I have pressure in that tank that I can blow any residual sanitizer out. And so we're talking about the bottom port, the racking arm, and any other ports that are available to be open. I want to get that stuff out of there. Okay. And then when I get ready to run my wort into that, I'll have 0 pressure in it. You know, I'll have a drop line, you know, a blow off line down to a bucket, however you have that scenario. So I have that whole thing ready to go. It's not under pressure when I put wort into it. But I feel comfortable doing that. That was our standard practice at Sonder, was that when a tank was handled that way, we were good for 3 days with it. And beyond that, we would go back and resanitize again after that. But anyways, I feel good for doing that up to 3 days before. It's a great way to clear something out of your schedule, especially if you are a solo act. So if it's just you in the brew house, I like to not be, digging in grain and doing all these other things and then, going back and forth to my fermenter and getting it sandied. If that's what has to be done, it's what has to be done. But I like to have that done ahead of time. Also ahead of time, I will have my salts, acid, and enzymes measured out. I will have them in sealed containers. One of the things I loved about working at Sonder, we had these little Nalgene. I don't think they were a full liter. Maybe they were half-liter Nalgene bottles that we would put, our salts, acid, and enzymes into. It was really, really great. We would cap them up so the salts stay dry. If you were measuring out enzyme and it needed to be refrigerated, you'd throw that measured amount covered and back in the refrigerator or the walk-in. I like to have that stuff done. I like to make sure that my thermometer and pH meter are calibrated. You want to do that every so often. Vinny at Russian River was saying they calibrate their pH meter every day. Maybe you do it once a week or before you brew. I don't know how many times you're turning wort in a week. And then that thermometer, maybe once a month, make a really dense ice bath. The best kind of ice for that is like the crushed ice, the good ice, and fill up a cup with that crushed ice. Get some cold water in it, fill it up below the level of the ice, because then the ice will kind of melt into it a little bit. But you want to get a really dense ice to water solution. Stick that temperature probe in there. It should read either 32F or 0C, and you can calibrate that thing out. So check that out. And the same thing with your pH meter. You want to be able to stay on top of it. Next point is I really like to be ready to mash in when I walk in. Mash in when I walk in. What that means to me is my grain is already milled, if you can do that. Not everybody has a grain hopper or anything like that, but at least have everything set up as far as you can, right? I like the beginning of the brew day to be, when I'm turning wort, I like things to be orderly and non-rushed. If something goes wrong, I don't have to get 13 other things done while I'm trying to juggle the problem. I can just focus. I'll make less mistakes, and I'm going to be safer. So I'm coming in ready to mash in. I would like to already have the grain milled if I can, at least measured, set aside, something like that. For me, I also like to make sure that I have the HLT set to the right temperature. Not only that, I also like to recirculate my HLT, because depending on the size of your HLT, the way it's heated, the way it's built, you may get some stratification, and you may have cooler water on top and hotter water at the bottom. No. It'd be colder on the bottom and hotter at top. What is that? Why is that slipping my mind right now? Colder will sink, right? I'm having an epic brain fart on this, but big picture, you want to make sure that the whole thing is homogeneous. Chat, help me out there. You can tell me which one's going to sink. I think the cold is going to sink, because I've had that before where I've missed temps before. And then finally, the last thing, I make sure I have my hops and yeast. All the other things that are going to be going into that kettle, into that mash tun, I make sure I have them all, and we're ready to roll. Hey, Adam, have you ever brewed hoping that delivery of yeast was going to get there? Hell yeah. I don't know. Sometimes schedule is what it is. But yeah, I prefer not to. But that's kind of my checklist. That's kind of my checklist for how I like to prepare for my brew day. It's all laid out. When I was at Cartridge, and you'll see, if you ever go and watch the Prost video when I brew Munich Dunkel, I go in, I get the hot liquor tank turning, so I can get it homogeneous. So it's like, I think there's 28 barrels in that tank, so it's pretty big, and I definitely needed to turn that one over. Then you go make a cup of coffee. Everything else is ready. It's just waiting for that HLT to be homogeneous. So, start your day off relaxed and nice. That's the way I like to do it. That's the way I like to do it. Couple more. Oh, also, do you have grain out bins? Ask me how I know. There's been a few times where I've gotten rolling and I did not have grain out bins, and it makes for a sad boy. So yeah. But preparation. Yeah, Mathau, it says fantastic point about the tank holding pressure overnight. I love cheap insurance. Cheap insurance is good. And it doesn't have to be CO2. If you have an inert gas that you're using, if you're using nitrogen, something else, but whatever it is, make sure it's a clean gas source and pressure that thing up. This is I've got more questions. They're just pouring in, ladies and gentlemen. Look at everybody in here. Metalhead talking about how he likes to do heavy Whirlpool editions, dropping to 175F. Check your C's. I'm not sure on that. But yeah, I've definitely done that drop Whirlpool temp, that cool pool, if you will. I like that approach as well. Appreciate you mentioning that, Metalhead. Yeah, Dulcita, aka HBC 1019, is an amazing hop variety. We're getting some love from that from Fairly Local in here. Ill-gotten grains. Good to see you in here. Question: stuck fermentation. Rousing did nothing. Repitching did nothing. Temperature adjusted did nothing. Do you dump or keg? It kind of depends on how far. I mean, what is stuck? Were you expecting the beer to go to 1010 and it went to 1012? I know that's not what you're asking, but I'm assuming there's more fermentable sugar in there than you want there to be. My understanding with that scenario is sometimes people will go and add dry yeast back to that, or just more yeast, like a yeast slurry. But really what you want to be doing is you need to be getting an actively fermenting yeast population into that beer. If it's a situation where, say, like it's a saison, it's already, it's fermented 60% of what it's going to do, 70% of what it's due, but you need the rest of that 20. It's not getting there, and you don't have more saison yeast. I would have no problem getting an active prop of like a 1056 Chico American ale yeast, because it would be pretty neutral, and you've already established most of your flavor profile by achieving 70% of your fermentation. Just some thoughts, because one good thing about Chico is it's fairly robust in almost in all scenarios. But yeah, people will say try to warm it up, different things like that. But what you really want to be doing is getting an active pitch of yeast into there. And hopefully it's not too off brand of what you're doing beer wise. Hopefully the yeast character, if you want a clean beer, I don't know if I'd necessarily be throwing an active Belgian strain in there. You know what I mean? That's just kind of me. Mr. Fox, you're never late to the party. Welcome. So yeah, that's kind of my take on it. As far as that stuck fermentation thing, it's happened to me. And whether you're brewing at home or on the pro side, if it doesn't go right, just let it go down the drain. I mean, unless you're at home and you're like, hey, there's still booze in here, or you got some buddies that just don't care, that's fine too. But if you're selling it, it's better not. It's better to not. Ill-gotten grains, good to see you in here. Oh, Metalhead, glad to hear that. He said, Adam, followed your Munich Dunkel for one of our Oktoberfest beers. Came out great. Thank you. Awesome, man. I love that. I love that beer style. I like that approach to the recipe build on it. It's just a beer style I love. It might be a little, I don't know, It's the way I like the style. You know what I mean? But yeah, so that's kind of my spin on it. Ill-Gotten said it went from 1054 to 1034. Yeah, you're about halfway through what you're going to ferment on that. You're gonna need to get or if you're brewing at home, you're gonna want to get a starter that's up and really rolling, and then get that thing in there. So that would be my take, and also make sure that you're not crashing the temperature of that thing too low, right? Bambino, referring to your distiller comment, I'm good friends with Dread River here in Beeham. I'm assuming that's Birmingham. I'm sure he'd love to talk to you. I would love to do that. If it is Birmingham, I would love to do that when I am going down to Orange Beach later in the year. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I can get down there, but I would love to, because I think the time that I have scheduled down there is already pretty full. But I appreciate that. I love where your head is at. And yeah. Yeah, I would love to at least touch base with him. Have him give me a holler on Instagram or whatever. There's a contact page on adammakesbeer.com as well. I would like that. Thankful for this. YouTube seems to be down right now. That doesn't make sense. Why would YouTube be down right now? That's the second person that I've had say that the YouTube stream is not working. So I wonder what's going on there. Maybe it's a thing, maybe it's not. It says I'm live. It says I'm live on here. But yeah, hopefully everybody's getting to see that wants to. Happy Chula, good to see you. Yeah, that would be my thought, Ilgan. Appreciate the question, man. Where is Echo Spirits, Griff? Do you know anybody there? If you do, set me up. Okay, good. Thanks, Bobby. All right. Yeah, that's my rundown on that, folks. As always, they're in Columbus. Do you follow me on Instagram, Griff? Adam Makes Beer on Instagram. If you don't mind, can you shoot me a message on Instagram and with that name, because this chat it's not gonna get lost, but I'm not gonna see it again. Yeah, that would be great if you could shoot me that message on IG. That would be fantastic. As always, it's the AMA. Ask me anything. Drop those Brew Day questions, or really any other beer brewery questions down below. It's good to see everybody in the chat. Chats are popping tonight, everybody. I love this community. So next question that we're going to discuss: how do you dial in mash temperature? Here are my tips for dialing in mash temperature. I don't know about you, but does your brewery have HVAC? A lot of mine haven't. A lot of brew houses I've worked in do not have HVAC. They might have heaters during for the winter, but there's no AC. There's no humidity control. Dude, Cartridge was beautiful. It's a beautiful building, and there was glass all around me. But during the summer, it got so hot, and in the winter, it got so cold. We did have some heaters in there that would blow. It was like the kind of the shop heaters, like the coil and the fan behind it. We had a couple of those, and it was a little bit wild. But it is what it is. But you end up in situations where the temperature of that brewery can be so variable season to season, and you can find that maybe hitting mash temperatures consistently can be difficult. So let's go through my checklist of the things that I like to track down and keep track of when it comes to dialing in mash temperature. First thing is to preheat your mash tun. One of the things that I like to do if I'm really concerned about dialing in that mash temperature is I like to make sure that the tank itself that I am mashing into is a consistent temperature. So a lot of times people will have their HLT set to 180 degrees, and they will cut that temperature 180 degrees F, and they will cut that with a cold water source and blend that out to the mashing temperature that they want to be using. If you're doing that, go ahead and take some of that HLT water and put a barrel or two through the spray ball, through the CIP spray ball of your mash tun. Hopefully your mash tun is insulated. And, you know, there's a lot of metal in there. There's a lot of thermal mass. You could have a rake in there. You have the false bottom. You have the walls and bottom of the tank. You have the whole deal. So go ahead and maybe just do, you know, a half barrel at a time. Blast a half barrel water. Let it drop out the drain. Another half barrel. And kind of look at the temperature of that tank and see, you know, if you can get it to whatever, 130 F. But we kind of get it similar, right? It's not the biggest consideration, but if you're mashing in some days in a brewery that's 45 degrees, because yes, I have 45 degrees F, and then some days it's 100 degrees in that brewery F when you are mashing in, there's going to be some difference there, right? So let's eliminate some variables and preheat that mash tun. The second item is an item I mentioned in a previous question, but recirculate your HLT water / liquor for consistent temperature. Again, when you get these larger vessels, you can get stratification of temperature. Okay. So what I like to do is, if you look at some of those Brew Day videos that I do at Cartridge, I just have a pump set up in the morning. It's already set up when I get in the morning. It's coming off the bottom of the tank. The bottom of the HLT is going to the face of the pump, the inlet of the pump. Outlet of the pump is going up to, I have a little valve like kind of almost at the top of the water line in there, maybe 3/4 of the way up. I put another hose up there and I pull from the bottom and push back out there. And you can immediately see that temperature of the tank drop. And it'll drop like 8 to 10 degrees. That's what it would do in my HLT. That was like 27, 28, 29 barrels. So yeah, it's possible and it could happen to you. It might seem basic, but it's a simple little thing that can help create consistency for you. Depending on what your grain situation is, you know, you can temp your grain. You know, more so thinking about, you know, if you're pulling, you know, grain from outside that's 35 degrees F, so close to freezing, and you're bringing it in and mashing in with it, it's going to be very different than if you have that grain in the summertime when it's 90 F. So yeah, that's some of the stuff that I would look at there. There are also calculators for temperature of your water, temperature of your tank, temperature of your grain. You can play around with those. Okay. All of this comes back to, on some level, keeping good data. Every brew log should have all of this stuff included in it. Okay. It'll really help you dial things in. In order to measure, we're talking calibration for your thermometers once again, whether it be if you have like a large probe that you're using on the surface of the mash, or you have a temp probe that's in the side of the mash tun. They all need to be calibrated. And I would look at doing them once a month. It might seem like overkill. If you have a day that's a little bit slower, you could just calibrate a whole bunch of them at once. I know there's going to be a lot of them in your brewery, but that's a great way to go. You want to calibrate your thermometers to know that you're getting accurate readings when you are on this pursuit of dialing in your mash temperature consistently. The final thing I'll mention is utilizing a flow meter. This might sound really, really silly, but you're measuring everything else. You need to be measuring your volumes of water. You need to be measuring your volumes of water. So yeah, that's how I would handle it, folks. Those are the main things that I would do when I'm trying to really dial in my mash temperatures and my consistency on that front. But you have to take notes on it, and you have to be diligent. Okay, I think that's a big way. Beers What I Make says the stream is working again. It's weird because I have comments coming in from YouTube, and so it seems to be spotty on the receiver side. I don't know why. I apologize, everybody. Yeah, Bambino is in the no AC club over here. Yeah, man, in there, sweating. Love it. Good to see everybody in the chat. Drop those questions if you're just getting in. Also, let me know where you're from, what you're brewing, what's in the tanks. And drop those Brew Day questions or any other beer questions that you have for me. The next topic I want to dip into on this AMA on Brew Day processes is, what are some keys to a successful Vorlauf? Vorlauf is, after your mash rest, you will begin circulating that wort through the false bottom, sometimes with the use of a grant, and pumping it back up to the top of the mash bed and recirculating that, pulling grain husks, larger particulate, and clarifying your wort and helping to set the grain bed, as they say, for an appropriate lauter. There are some variables when it comes to this. One of those variables is grist size. Kind of the simplest way I can think about it is I would Google How to Brew by John Palmer, and he has a picture of a grain crush, like with a quarter in his palm too. It's not a super fine crush. You know, you can see that you don't see any grain husk shredded. You know, obviously the really clear answer is you could use a sieve. Okay, but most people don't have a sieve. If you don't have one, borrow one from somebody. If there's one floating around, but that's kind of the, you know, sieves aren't cheap. So anyways, just kind of on the nuts and bolts front, you know, make sure you're not getting any whole kernels through there. Make sure you're not shredding that husk. I personally would rather have my grist be a little coarser as opposed to a little finer. Sometimes I feel as if I go too fine, I can stick that mash bed very easily. And by going a little bit more coarse, but in part because of that, get a really thorough lauter or rinse or rinse through as I'm lautering wort to the kettle and I'm sparging through. Like, I don't know if this is a made up word, but I feel like sometimes I can get a real high quality, like, lauterability of that mash bed, right? Because it is easier to flow water through that sparge water through that cylinder of grain, right? Sometimes I feel as if it's really finely ground, it can make that difficult to pass that water through there uniformly, and that's something that we really want to do. So for a successful Vorlauf, grain size, make sure you're not too fine. Also, you know, the point of the Vorlauf is to get this clearer wort. Something that I would consider as well are the adjuncts that you have in your mash. If you have a bunch of rye, malted or otherwise flaked, you know I'm a sucker for some flaked rye. for that increased viscosity that it brings. I think it's one of the underrated players when it comes to that viscosity. But sometimes those will impact, and they'll also impact the clarity. So the viscosity of it, and maybe it can get sticky and want to get stuck. Be mindful of that. I personally like to add those stickier adjuncts on top of the mash. So when the rest of my grain goes through and I still have some water, some mash and water going in, I like to pour those stickier adjuncts in toward the end so they still get to stir. For some reason, I feel like I have more success with that than doing it at the beginning. Maybe that's just, crazy anecdotal stuff from me. I don't know, but I feel good about it, and I feel like it works well for me. So maybe that's something you can do, but be mindful of that when you have those potentially sticky adjuncts in your Vorloff. One, for how hard you can run that, because you don't want to compress that grain bed because of the increased viscosity. But also sometimes with some of those adjuncts, you may have a more difficult time getting it as clear as you want. Sometimes when I'm doing a hazy grist, I've gotten used to saying to people that I'm trying to get the grain, the first runnings, husk and grain free, right? Not clear, because I'm not going to get that. I'm not going to get that work clear on that hazy grist, right? Something else to consider with your Vorloff, remembering that if you're at cooler temperatures as opposed to higher temperatures, the cooler the temperatures are, the more viscous that liquid is going to be. The higher the temperature is, the thinner it's going to be. So it's just one more thing that kind of plays a little bit into the adjuncts concept as well. A lot of time, people ask a lot of questions about grants, and just to be clear, a grant is a secondary vessel between your mash tun, your mash lauter tun, however you want to, whatever type of system you have, and your pump that acts as a secondary vessel to pump wort back to the top of the vessel. The idea here is that if you have a pump going directly to the bottom of the mash tun and you run that pump too hard, you can compress that bed. If you have a secondary vessel between it that's filling with just wort, and then you pump off that too fast, you can run it dry. Okay, but you're not going to compact. You're not going to compact the grain bed at all because of that. The only thing that would compact the grain bed with a grant is if you're running wort too quickly into the grant. Okay, so a grant is just kind of a little safety when it comes to that thing. When it comes to that thing. What else? And flow rate. I was gonna dig into this a little bit, and I didn't have time to off the top. Give yourself a quick ChatGPT, Grok, or whatever AI search, or even Google. The Google search you're probably going to get is probably AI based anyways too. But and of course, always double check your sources when you're pulling AI searches or even Google searches. But dig into flow rate and kind of find a range. I wanted to look that up real quick, but I didn't. So do a little side hustle here and check out your flow rate, because sometimes I think people can get running too hard, compact the bed, or go too slow and don't actually turn enough wort over in that tank. Sometimes people also talk about too, and this is just one thing that's in the back of my head right now. I've had Vorloff returns that have like the dentist mirror, the angled disc, and it kind of fans the wort out over the top of the mash bed uniformly and gently. And I've also had the one that goes the bar, that kind of the tube that comes out and just lays right along the side of the mash tun, and just it just pours the return, the Vorloff return along the sidewall. They both seem to work. I haven't had issues with efficiency with either one of them. But yeah, So those are some of my kind of my big picture keys, things to think about as far as when you're kind of building out, what makes a successful Verlof. And as far as time, the faster you're going, obviously, the quicker it can help set that bed and gain clarity. The caveat being, worried about compressing that bed. And the other one is, does it look good enough? Is it grain free? That's generally my thing. I think when I was at Cartridge, that Verlof was 20 minutes, maybe give or take. But yeah. Anyways, that's my take on a successful Verlof. We got another Adam in here. Moved to Florida, miss my Ohio quality beers and significantly better water quality in Cincinnati. Adam, are you a brewer? Good to see everybody in the chat. It's popping, baby. It's popping. Cade, good to see you in here. I appreciate the question. Kate asks, curious your experience with gluten-free brewing. Having troubles with achieving a stable haze without hop burn in a hazy IPA. Grains are purely millet and buckwheat. I would be looking at making sure that you, going back to the hop strain idea, I'm sorry, the yeast strain idea, making sure that you have something that's yeast positive and that is haze positive. So any of the, I'm going to use the word classic and you can hate me if you want to, but any like the what are considered to be like, kind of the classic hazy IPA strains at this point. I mean, it's not going away. I'm okay saying that. So that, and making sure that you are getting substantial dry hops, not during fermentation, because check out the studies that Omega did on maintaining haze and dry hop volume, or maintaining haze and dry hop timing. It's a big deal. And make sure you're going very aggressive. Sorry, my eyes and nose are itching because of the allergies. But yeah, make sure you're very aggressive. That was the first thing Janice said about that on the one pod that I was listening to. Jack up those volumes, 4 to 6 pounds per barrel in the dry hop. You could be, somewhat aggressive in your whirlpool as well, potentially a pound per barrel. So yeah, that would be my take on it. Cade, are you brewing gluten-free on the pro side? I'm going to be talking to a gluten-free brewer that Shan is hooking me up with. She has a brewer buddy. If you can check out my podcast with Shanley Thompson, industry pro from earlier this year. Fun conversation, and we were talking gluten-free, and she's got a buddy that she's going to set me up with for an industry pro interview. I want to get into some gluten-free content, like legitimately gluten-free content, because your boy's not handling the gluten. The GI tract, it's giving me the leaky gut. You know what I mean? Deep depression, water retention, and other things like that. Novice at best. Ain't nothing wrong with that, man. Remember, amateur just means for the love of. For the love of. Kate's been brewing a year professionally in Golden CO. Man, I should have tried to get out there. I'm wondering, maybe next year for GABF, I'll have to go out. You're certified gluten-free facility. Not personally gluten-free, though. Man, I would love... Kate, I don't know if... I don't think it was you that I was talking to. Kate, I would love to get my mitts on some of that beer. Hit me up on Instagram, dude. I'm always curious to make some gluten-free content. Certified gluten-free facility. No kidding. Hit me up on IG if you're on IG. Send me a DM. I appreciate it. Let me know the name of the brewery and whatnot. and tell me that we were talking tonight on the pod. Welcome everybody in the chat. If you're just joining us, today is an Ask Me Anything Brew Day Process Q&A type show. Drop any questions that you have like that. Any other brewing questions or beer questions too. It's all welcome. Camilo, welcome from Colombia. Man, I love that. I love the international community here. YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, crazy thing, man. Welcome. I'm not sure if I've seen you in here before. If I haven't, welcome. Let me know if you're brewing on the pro side, on the home side, or you just love listening to a guy like me talk about beer. P.O. box for a bottle swap. I don't have a P.O. box. But yeah. Anyways, I don't have a P.O. box. Where are we at? I'm sorting through the chat here. I got Victor from Mexico. First time into here. Oh, no, that's not Victor. I'm sorry. Oh yeah, it's hi. I'm Victor from Mexico. First time in here. Welcome, Victor. Let me know if you have any beer questions or anything like that. Love seeing all the new faces, and quite frankly, some of the old faces too. I've had a word said about my more prominent mustache. I shaved my beard. If you've been watching the Small Town Guys pod, I am going to be doing kind of a gunslinger thing for Halloween. And so I didn't want to shave my mustache completely, but the beard part was getting too prickly. And so I had to cut it back. So I trimmed the beard back to kind of stubble, and then I had the little guy here. You know what I mean? And what the strange thing was is nobody said anything to me about my mustache. And I'm surrounded by people that will just the people that love me, the people that say they love me, they'll just feast on me. You know what I mean? Ridicule, finger point. I hung out with my boys this past weekend. Nobody even said anything. So anyways, maybe the gunslinger mustache is just the look for me now. I'm planning on growing the beard and the mustache out more up until the Halloween episode. But I mean, we'll see, ladies and gentlemen. If the people speak and love the slinger, I'll see. We'll see what happens. Man, the chat's popping. What's good? Camilo, I've seen a lot of your content first time on a live stream. That's awesome. I'm brewing in a new brewery here called La Daga. Awesome, man. If you're on Instagram, Camilo, hit me up with a message and send me that brewery. The brewery Instagram if you can. I'd love to be able to check it out. I always ask people that to send me DMs because I'm not going to be able to see this stream, or I'm just not going to see the comments again in this one. I typically don't get back to it, but yeah, awesome. Good to see everybody in here. Let's keep it popping, ladies and gentlemen. I had a gentleman asking me about a mash filter, and I saw him bouncing around a little bit in the brewery streets here on various platforms asking questions. Oh, this is from Randy. Shout out to Randy. We're gonna do a little dip into this concept of the mash filter. I'm sorry, yeah, mash filter, mash press. I'm hiccuping a little bit, ladies and gents. I'm sorry. By the way, number one item in the Adam Makes Beer store is the Brew Daddy mug. For the record, if you're new, it has my face on it. It says Brew Daddy. My children made this for me for a Christmas gift. My children are old enough that they understand a double entendre and the fact that some of them still call me daddy, but it has kind of a double meaning, the awkwardness, the funniness. They made this for me. I took that design, put it in the Adam Makes Beer store. It is the number one. selling item in the store. So also adammakesbeer.com, great way to support me is merch store in there. It's linked in there. T-shirts, hoodies. The weather's changing. Maybe you need a t-shirt. You know what I mean? Maybe you need that young hoodie. Maybe you need a big old mug, a 20-ounce mug. Or there's a smaller one. There's a 16-ounce mug, a black one with the 4 elements of beer on it. It says Adam Makes Beer. There's all sorts of stuff. Get in there and check it out. But let's start talking mash press a little bit. Mash press is no joke equipment. And this is referenced from, I'm going to do some reading here off of a section from the Oxford Companion to Beer, which is linked to beerandbrewing.com. It is some free content from Beer and Brewing. Love that. Love free content, Beer and Brewing. Not a paywall guy. Bobby. Love it, brother. Bobby Fox is just signed up for a new channel membership. Love that support, people. Shout out to all my beautiful sponsors, beautiful members. Just a quick link on your phone. You can hit join, $2.99 a month. I do 4 pods a month. Lots of stuff. I'm doing what I can do to help us all get better at brewers. Show me a little love if you got the scratch. If you don't, you don't. No hard feelings. Bobby, love it, brother. Thank you. So this is referenced from here. Overall, and this is saying too that this is quoted from it's from Kuhn's, Wolfgang. Technology Brewing and Malting, Berlin, VLB Berlin, 1996. Just making sure everything is cited appropriately. I'm just going to read you what they have here, and then we'll kind of talk around it. A mash filter is a wort separation device that can be used as an alternative to a lauter tun or to a mash lauter vessel. The mash filter is essentially a plate and frame filter press fitted with a series of fine filters for separating spent grist from sweet wort. Whereas older mash filter models were often criticized for providing hazy worts with high levels of unwanted polyphenols, modern mash filters are highly efficient and can produce bright worts with few particles. In 1901, the Belgian Philippe Meura, M-E-U-R-A, developed a filter press to improve the mash lautering process. This company bears Meura's name, is still making mash filters. The mash filter, unlike the mash tun, is able to handle very fine grist crushed by a hammer mill, and this ensures exceptional extract recovery. A modern mash filter is a series of polypropylene filters which can handle grist up to 100% adjunct. So 100% rice, 100% oats. I had a beer that was 100% rye from Griffin Claw out of Michigan. And that boy had the body, baby. Had the body, thick one, 100% rye. Grist of up to 100% adjunct because barley malt husks are not required to act as a filter medium, as is the case with a lauter tun. Once the first wort has been run off into the kettle, sparge liquor can be introduced into the filter and a weaker wort can be extracted. Sparging continues until the required amount of wort has been collected. Some systems allow the mash to be physically squeezed dry after sparging has been completed. At the end of each cycle, the filter is opened and the spent grains, almost dry, are allowed to drop out. A modern mash filter can filter large volumes of wort very quickly, enabling some brewers to process more than 12 brews per day. What? There are some disadvantages. Compared with a lautering vessel, the mash filter can be difficult to use when a brewery employs a wide variety of mash sizes because the range of optimal loading for the press is relatively small. Some brewers argue that the mash lauter tun remains a superior mass separation device and produces better quality wort. Mash filters remain rare in the United States, but they are widely used in Europe and other parts of the world. So yeah, man, I have not, was this Randy? I have not personally used one. I know from some digging around that I've talked to some folks. They need to be cleaned well, maintained well. You got to know what you're doing and take good care of it as well. But that's with all your stuff. That's all your equipment in the brewery. Treat your equipment with respect. Anyways, if somebody knows, I would love to see some video footage of that being used, or even some video on how that works, anything like that. I would love to see it. So if you want to drop into the comments anything that you see like that, I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it. Bobby, man, my heart is still warm from that membership that you sent my way, brother. Thank you. Let's see here. Man, the chat's jumping today, people. The chat's jumping. Adam, glad you're loving the content, man. Thank you. Keep grinding. Love that you're out there making beer. It doesn't matter how much you're making at once. Bambino thinks if I was a clean-shaven brewer, he wouldn't trust me anyways. I may not be trustworthy anyways, Bambino. I'm planning to do my first 5-gallon lager. Any recommendations regarding yeast temperature? I have a corny keg and spunding valve. Do you recommend using the spunding? For that scale, what I recommend is I recommend a nice big active pitch of yeast that you've grown up. If you are using dry yeast, that's fine. You can direct pitch, especially if that wort is not incredibly dense. If you're looking at a 4 or 5% beer. But I would go ahead and jump on the website for the manufacturer and look at the recommended temperature range and pitching amount. And I would look at what they say for the pro side and then scale it down just to make sure that the numbers are going accordingly. I would keep that temperature nice and cool. So if you have a way to temperature control, that would be, a fermentation chamber, temperature controlled refrigerator or freezer, something like that. That's what I would do with that. I would not have a problem with raising that fermentation temperature up, to help you get through your diacetyl stage. And then at that point, you're just making beer, man. All your processes for whether you're making lager or not, lager or ale, it's all fine attention to detail. But yeah, appropriate amount of yeast, which is going to be more than you would for your ale strains. And yeah, as far as the corny keg and spunding, me personally, I would tend to, if you're going to do a cool ferment, I would tend to let it get 2/3 of the way through fermentation and then bung it up to 15 psi, 1 bar, whatever, and then try to let it finish out there, and so you can hold that carbonation in there. That's just what I'm used to doing with lager. In part one, because I think it's going to keep your yeast happier and healthier. But that's just me. Being under pressure is taxing on yeast. So that would be my take, man. Bambino, you talk about that mash press. Yeah, I think the idea behind the mash press, the mash filter, is that you grind it like completely fine, because you're looking to extract as much. That's the thing. You can get 100% efficiency out of your grind as opposed to 80 or 90% or 75% or whatever. So it's a complete crush, so you can maximize that. So yeah, that's the idea, is you want to be crushing really, really fine with it. Yeah, for the mash press, Bambino. So you have multiple locations and one of them has a mash press. That's wild. I'm assuming it's the production, the larger production house. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I believe that was Victor. You're welcome. Yeah, how much can mash efficiency increase with the mash filter, considering that the grain can be milled much finer? Yeah, that's the idea. It's supposed to be, you can get up to 100%, man. Hippie Cracker. Sometimes I just read the names before I read the names out. Well, I just say the names before I read them out loud. There's Hippie Cracker in here. Hi from Scotland. Loving it. International, baby. Love your brew day videos. I'm homebrewer thinking of doing a marshmallow stout for my next batch. Any tips on grain and yeast choice to bring out the marshmallow flavor? You might not like this answer, but I would get a high quality natural extract. And I would look at building out the flavors that you want to support the marshmallow flavor. I feel much better using ingredients that are beer friendly as opposed to something like marshmallow, which is going to have, more often than not, preservatives, a lot of other things, that might not be kind to your process. So I would be tempted to look up some natural extracts. You might be surprised the number of things you can get. However, I'm not sure exactly what you can get in Scotland compared to here. Here in the USA, I would hit up a place. There's a number of places, but Apex Flavors, I'm guaranteed has something there. There's other manufacturers as well. But I would build the beer you want as the base and then dose that on the cold side with a natural extract product. That would be my take on some of those, wilder type adjunct beers. You're not going to be ruining head retention. You're not going to be ruining potential shelf stability. You're not going to be creating potential fermentation issues, bottle bomb issues, and the like. Okay. That would be my take, Hippie Cracker. Baras. Hello, Adam. Just dropping by to say hi, hello, and wish you well. This is Webdan from YouTube. What's up, Webdan? It's been a minute. Trying to catch up with your awesome content on YouTube. Keep it up. Thanks for all that you do. Webdan, brother. Glad you're doing well. Man, I haven't seen that name in a second. That's awesome. That's awesome, dude. Good to see you. Hope all is well on your side. Hippie Cracker, you're welcome. Hippie Cracker, you're welcome. All right, where are we at? That's about it for our mash filter conversation, folks. We went a little bit afar, but yeah, I was thinking this was going to be an hour and a half stream, but it's getting closer to 2. I have no problem with that. We've got a solid amount of people in here. Questions are rolling in, and I have some more prepared stuff too. So I'm loving it. So good to see everybody in here. Super grateful, full of gratitude to see everybody in here. Some names, some blast from the past names, some new names. So I'm loving it. Good to see you all in here. Next question, next topic on this Brew Day fundamentals, this Brew Day processes, AMA. Ask me anything. Single infusion mash rest length. Let's talk about it. Single infusion mash rest length. I see a lot of people doing a lot of different things with their mash rests. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying you're right. This is what I have done. Quite often, I am using a base malt that has very, very high diastatic power. It may have a DP of 160, maybe sometimes higher. If you are using American, Canadian grown base malts, most of those malts are built for high adjunct beers, so they're very high in enzymatic power, meaning they have a greater capacity for converting starch to sugar. And that is worked out that way because of the higher adjunct light lagers that are primarily made here in the United States and really around the world. So I think a lot of people stick with that mash rest. They have their grain in, their mash in, which could take anywhere from 15 to 25 minutes, let's say. And then they'll set a 60-minute timer. And then they'll start that Verloff for 20 minutes to a half hour, 15 minutes to a half hour, whatever it is. I say to you that I believe that you can cut that rest significantly. Now, you can test this. There's ways to test it. At the end of the day, do what you're comfortable with. But I will say, if you're just doing a standard single infusion mash and you are looking to hit, I do not have the numbers in front of me, folks, so I apologize. So you're going to have to do some translating from freedom units. But, you know, if you're just doing a standard mash, you're resting at 152 F. You know, getting a little alpha, a little beta amylase going in there. Obviously, the warmer, not obviously, but the warmer you rest that mash, the more quickly those enzymes will act. So there's one thing. But I think by the time you are through your 20-minute, whatever, mashing, so some of your grain has already been in water for 20 minutes. At temperature for 20 minutes. By the time you're getting that whole thing incorporated, I started, when I was at Cartridge, I would stop my mash. I would finish my mash, clean up a little bit, get my grist hydrator off, clean up around a little bit, and then I would just start my Verloff. So my rest would be between 5 and 10 minutes at the most. And then I think I had to Verloff for 25 minutes there. That seems to be what my system liked the most. And I was fully converted. If you're uncomfortable with this, stick this in your pipe. No, being really aggressive, not my style. I love when raw material manufacturers give you data that matters. If you pull up the, what is this? Is this the data sheet on Barca Pils, one of my all-time favorite Pilsner malts? Yeah, this is the, yeah, it's like the spec sheet on it. It's the sheet that has the flavor and aroma wheel on it. And then it has the parameters for everything. So I'll have the color, the dry extract, boiled wort color, you know, all the stuff you see on like a standard COA. But it also has saccharification time. And the saccharification time for Barca Pils is 15 minutes. Now, granted, that's a Pilsner malt, but it is not. It is not a malt that has the highest diastatic power. There's other malts that have higher levels. I'm not seeing DP listed on this sheet, but I am quite certain that it is not as robust as some of the other ones, some of the other Pilsner malts that they slang. So I would check into your data sheets. And also, I would love for you to mash in, pull, get it all incorporated, pull a sample. There's going to be some grain in it, but try to get the more liquidy portion. Pour it through a coffee filter, so you're getting the majority of your particulate out. Get it cooled, and then throw it on a density meter, a refractometer, whatever you're using, and see how quickly that mash converted. Okay, I'm gonna guess that it's converting faster than you think it might. Okay, now you can say, listen, resting for an hour makes me happy. Great. I want to make sure I'm getting every last drop of sugar out of it. Great. That's wonderful. I have no problem with that. Do what makes you happy. If you're looking for ways to gain efficiency as far as time, and you want to be able to shave some time off of that, you know, good record keeping, make sure that you are still hitting the same density that you're getting at your 1 hour rest, and then push the limits a little bit, baby. See what you can do. Okay. That would be my advice there as far as single mash rest length. I'll ask you to get out of your comfort zone a little bit. I'm not asking you to be a slacker brewer, a worse brewer, a less diligent brewer. I'm encouraging you to see if you can find efficiencies in your process. And maybe if you're at that 90-minute, listen, if you're 90 minutes, if you're 60 minutes, if you need all 60 minutes because you're busting your tail, getting everything else done because you're solo in the brew house, take your 60 minutes. That's fine. That's great. Okay. But if you're in a situation where you're looking for a little bit more time efficiency, that's a parameter that you could look at and test to see when you're ready to be moving on. Okay. You can also be throwing in an iodine test in there as well. For sure. All right. Hey, chat. What's good, everybody? Webdam, that's a trip, man. Good to see that. I'm still laughing about that. I'm scrolling through the chat. Your visit to Costa Rica is still pending. I know. I need to get down there, man. Some love from Puerto Rico. Lenell, thank you, from Puerto Rico. Yeah, I'm open. I'm open to come places. I'm open to come places. Let me know when the ticket and the accommodations come, and I'll be on my way. We'll make some videos. Yeah, Brian asks, is follow-up to the Verlaw question, and thanks so much, Brian, for the question. Good to see you in here. What was your visual clue that your Verlauf was complete? You mentioned your system at cartridge took like 25 minutes. For me, it was that it was grain free, and it was varying levels of clarity depending on my grist. But in general, you know, I don't try to spin it until it's crystal clear. Okay, there's kettle findings that I can use to help take care of some of that stuff. I want to make sure that I'm not chunky going through there. I don't want to see husk. I don't want to see grain chunks going through. And that's really what I'm looking for. That's really what I'm looking for. But I would encourage you to go ahead and check out Vorlauf flow rates. Double check that. That was a stat that I wanted to find. But yeah, that might be able to give you some parameters too. And I apologize, though something I was going to research up for you, and it slipped my mind as I was doing my things today. But Brian, that's what I'm looking for, man. Good to see you in here. I appreciate the question. Next question. Comes from Pray for Our Country. Do you see any downsides in repitching yeast from beer that had biofine in it? Okay, so depending on how it's used or when it was harvested, okay, what I am used to brewing and utilizing biofine in a conical fermenter. So by the time I use biofine, I am biofining in a cooler beer post-harvest. Okay, so I have already harvested my yeast, dumped my yeast, and dumped the cone of that fermenter. Because typically what I would do is I would get the biofine introduced into the tank, and then I would rouse it aggressively from the bottom to help mix it. That would be one way that you can mix that biofine in the fermenter. Okay. So your post-fermentation, you know, your past diacetyl, all that stuff, you get your yeast out of there. I would have a concern with harvesting a pitch that has had biofine incorporated into it. I would not want to be, I would not want to reuse that. Is that a silica based? I'm trying to remember. And yeah, I would want to keep that separate. I would want to keep that separate. So, just my take on it, man. And yeah, that's my thought. Yo, baby. This is the first time I'm getting a yo, baby in the chat. Maybe it's the mustache. Yo, baby. Simple question. Acidity, sparge or not? On the homebrew level, I've read many folks say it needs to be 5.8 pH. Acidify sparge or not. Listen, dude, You will not believe this. I could show you my screen right now. You want to talk about a segue, dancing squirrel? Here's a segue for you. Literally, the next thing I was going to talk about was this. So let's get into it. Loved everybody in the chat. Good to see everybody in there. Adjusting pH of sparge water. All right. So I think that one of the best things that I have done for the quality of my lagers is to make sure that my sparge pH is appropriate. I had somebody ask me a question the other day on Instagram when they saw me in a short video utilizing the acidification method that we're about to discuss. And they said, you know, something along the lines of, why do you go through all that when you could just change the pH of the wort in the kettle? That is not the point of the practice. The point of the practice of acidifying your sparge water, depending on the pH of your sparge water, is to not be pulling out tannins as you sparge your mash. There are two functions that can affect that. And if I'm remembering correctly, the primary one is, I believe, pH, and second is sparge temperature. So let's talk about adjusting the pH side of things. I shoot for a pH of 5.5 for my sparge water, so that meshes fairly well with what you're talking about there. But we're under 6, and I think that's one of the keys. And I think there's two ways to do that. And this is one of the things that always upsets people on the pro side. Somebody's like, why isn't he just bulk dosing his HLT? Well, not everybody's HLT is built for bulk dosing. But there's two ways to do it. One, and probably the best way, is to bulk adjust the HLT in order to make sure, whether you're doing that with phosphoric or lactic, you must recirculate and make sure that that acid is uniformly spread throughout your HLT. Otherwise, you're going to be getting funky water pHs rolling through and sparging your mash, and you do not want that. The pH sample needs to be cooled to the recommended temp of your calibrated pH meter. Okay, so recirculate that and test it. Just don't go blindly with it and say, "Oh, this is going to work." That would just be me. Get used to testing. The next thing is an approach that I used when I was at Cartridge, because I did not have an easy way to dose my hot liquor tank and to make sure that I could spin it, to make sure it was uniform, all that stuff. I didn't have that flexibility with my equipment, so I developed this technique, the spray bottle technique, the spray bottle sparge adjustment. The other way of doing this is in a measured and periodic way, spraying diluted acid over the surface of the mash. So I'll give you some examples. So the idea here is that you're getting your sparge water to below 6. I do 5.5, because that's the pH of the water that you want rinsing your grain bed, not just satisfying some pH target in the kettle. So what I would do is this. I would say this. I'm trying to read my own notes. So in a measured and periodic way, spray diluted acid over the surface of the mash. So step 1, get a food grade spray bottle that will handle the lactic acid or phosphoric acid. Spray bottle with the volume of acid you need to adjust the total volume of the sparge water. Okay, so let's just make a really easy example here. Okay, so let's say we're going to have 100 gallons, and don't argue with me about the volumes that I'm going to use or the measurements I'm going to use. but I just want some easy math here. So we're going to say we have 100 gallons of sparge water. Okay. And so I'm just making up numbers, but I put my 10 ounces of food grade acid, lactic acid into my spray bottle, and I fill that up to 25 ounces. Okay. It's divisible by 5, and it gives me 5 5-ounce sections in my spray bottle. I will take my volume of sparge water, divide that by 4. I'm sorry. It'll go in, no. Yeah, I want 5. And I said I was going to make it easy. So that means every 20 gallons, because I'm going to have 5 5-ounce chunks, every 20 gallons of water that comes through my flow meter, sparging the surface, I'm spraying this dilute acid solution over top of that. Okay. You could say, Adam, that's ridiculous. You don't need to do it like that. I have had blind tested, experienced, blind testing, experienced brewers not even know that I did anything different with the water profile and pull out the one beer, the one lager that I did not address the sparge water in this manner. Okay. And he pulled tannins out of the one where I didn't acidify in this manner. So I divide the total amount of sparge water by 5. Then that means that for each 1/5 of your sparge water, you need to spray 5 ounces of diluted acid over the top of it. Okay. I'm just creating, easy numbers to try to work with. If you want to do that in mils and it's going to be easier in mils, obviously it's easier in mils and liters. Do your thing, be happy. But that's the process that I use. I would encourage you to go back and watch some of the cartridge day brew days that I used to do, and you can see this process in action. People have been hitting me up for a while saying that they use this because they can't bulk dose their HLT either. Check it out. It helps. Check it out. It helps. If I were batch sparging with RO on the home side, yeah, I would probably still push that pH down because I'm assuming that RO water is still higher in pH. Glenn, good to see you in here, man. Appreciate the question. Okay. So yeah, dancing squirrel, that should answer your question. That's how I do it, and that's why I do it that way. Bambino wants to know about if I had any experience back sweetening beers, sours, or others. I played around with it with varying success. There's some issues around that, Bambino. Bottle bombs. That's one. Oxidation, some other quality things. There's oxidation. You can also have a situation where you put sweetness back in, you don't have all the yeast out of it. You can back sweeten by using some stabilizers. I'm not crazy about it. Those stabilizers tend to make me feel sick. Like from an inflammatory standpoint, they just don't jive with my system. Yeah, you could stabilize and back sweet. That might be the best way. You can filter yeast out, stabilize. So I personally am not crazy about it, but that's just because it doesn't, sulfites make me feel sick. They make me feel bad. So yeah. Sorry, not a super deep dive on it. I could go a little deeper on it, but I would want to do some more preparation. I appreciate the question though. Dancing squirrel, of course. Mick Kim Chase on Instagram. Might be a dumb question here, but how fast are you usually transferring your work? I feel like I could speed this process up. Must depend on system. Yeah, I mean, generally, when you are loudering, you do want to be tracking the pH and the density of your wort that you're running off. you know, people have different densities and pHs that they're comfortable running off down to. Off the top of my head, you know, I don't want the pH of that wort that I'm running into the lautering into the kettle to get north of 6. I want to keep that under. That's why we were just talking about some of the pH measures that I take. And really collecting wort below 1 Plato, maybe 1.5. I might have to double check. You might start getting into an area where you're getting more dilute than you want to, and maybe getting into a situation where you're a little bit more tannic. You know, I like to see even, I don't even mind being a little wasteful and going a little bit more dense with stuff like that. Especially when you're in a pub side thing, you know, the minor percentage points in efficiency on your system. If you really want to chase it, that's fine. But, you know, it's not going to make or break the place either. There's much larger decisions that'll do that. So you want to track that in general. You know, when I was on a 15 barrel system, I'm running 18 to 19 barrels into the kettle. I did that in 90 minutes. But again, sample that wort that's coming off. You might be able to go a little faster. You might need to go a little slower. I'm trying to remember how long lauters were when I was doing 30 barrels at Sonder. They were longer. I mean, I'm sure they were at least 2 hours, maybe sometimes longer, but yeah. So I would track those numbers. That's a great question. It fits right in with today's show. So love seeing you. I don't know if I've seen you in here before, McKim, but appreciate you being in here. Appreciate you being in here. This is the most people I've ever had on once on an Instagram stream. That's cool. I've got good numbers. I've got solid numbers on YouTube and Twitch too. This is a lot of fun. This is a lot of fun. Starred, yeah, Bobby Fox showing some love to that super chat, boy. If you're loving the content and you got the scratch, consider joining as a channel member for $2.99 a month. You get priority for questions. But anyways, you're really just helping me out. I am full-time doing this stuff, so appreciate the love. Next question, next topic is, how do I deal with my heat exchanger before knockout? I see different things on this. Some people aren't going to like my answer. They're going to say that it's overkill. I don't care. But kind of standard brew day practices that I keep dealing with my heat X before knockout. I will never be in a situation where that heat exchanger has not already at least been hit with caustic and potentially acid. And so it is sitting there rinsed and ready to roll. You can sanitize that wort line with PAA, appropriately blended PAA, spun for the appropriate amount of time at the appropriate temperature, at the appropriate flow rate, all that good stuff. And I also encourage you to have your O2 stone cracked so you can get flow going through out of your O2 stone. Which is typically post heat exchanger. I think that would be a lovely thing to be able to do. But something that I like to do even more, and you might not like my numbers on this, and that's quite all right with me. But I really love sanitizing that wort line and heat exchanger with heat. And I like to use 185F or 80C water, or maybe that's 85C. I could be wrong. 80C water that has been circulated through that loop for 20 minutes. That's what I like to do. And you can tell me that's overkill. I don't care. I like to know that I'm utilizing the radiant heat from that circulation to make sure that I'm getting into every nook and cranny of that heat exchanger, of all the valve rigs, of the block and bleed you have set up, all that stuff. And if I'm circulating that water longer, that's fine by me. I've had people say at that temperature, it only needs contact for 20 seconds. If that feels good to you, you do you. I feel better about 20 minutes. So that's what I do. So yeah. And I mean, it's a set it and forget it. You know what I mean? It's not like it's harder to do that or whatever. So that's my take. That's my take. Moving that on to dealing with heat X post brew on this AMA Brew Day topic session. Man, questions are still popping. Look at you people. I love you. Number 8, topic 8. Okay, good. This is my last one here. Dealing with heat-X post brew day. I always clean my heat-X same day. Please, 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 the number of places I've gone into that have funky heat exchangers, please clean your heat-X same day. After knockout, flush your heat exchanger forward and backward with clean water. I like to get some good ripping water through there. You'd be surprised what you blast forward and backwards. Either using your kettle as a chemical reservoir, a brink, a heated brink, or a CIP skid. Circulate caustic at the appropriate flow rate, chemical concentration, temperature, and time per your manufacturer's instructions. Clean the entire wort line and heat-X. I do this every time. And I also think you should be titrating that as well when we talk about appropriate chemical concentration. I like to dump that, rinse forward and backward, periodically clean with acid, clean forward and backward, and I do not leave chemical in it. Okay? If I'm going to be sitting on it for a while, if I'm going to be sitting on it for a few days, I will run caustic on it again. But that's just me before I hit it with sani or with heat on brew day. Okay? That's how I do my thing. That's how I do my thing. What else? Dude, it's all love here in the chat, baby. We got people from all over. It's an international affair. Brewer at Brew Gentleman. Awesome, man. Hit me up. McKim, if you're on Instagram, hit me up. Shoot me a message. Let me know what we chatted and what we talked about in here. There's a lot of names, and it's hard to keep everybody straight. Let me catch up on these questions, people. Yeah, ours is around 92. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Finally made it to your live. I got Batman in here. Batman, what's good, man? Finally made it to your live. Just started acid sparging, and I'm loving it. More control on pH, and I can't wait to try them when they're done. Batman, oh, obviously you're on Instagram because you're commenting on Instagram. Let me know how that works out for you. Really, 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 because I've seen legit results from it, and it's going to show more likely in your gently flavored stuff. So yeah, but anyways, love it. McKim is a brewer at Brew Gentleman. Hit me up with a message, brother. Brian, bulk dosing the HLT worries me for the later portion of the day when I'm using that water to make caustic. Probably mute after reclaimed water knockout dilutes, but it weighs in the back of my mind. I like your thought process, Brian, but you're probably right. You're probably right that it's going to be diluted back. But I think it's a great question for your chemical manufacturer. Talk through that with them. And actually, I would love for you to pull a sample of, so you know what you sparge with. You know it was 5.5, 5.8 or whatever. And then once it's topped back up after knocking it out, pull that sample, cool it, get that pH, and see what the difference is. And then tell that to your chemical guy and see if there's any considerations that come into play. I love the thought process, though, dude. I love that. That's very, very good. And I'm not making this up. I get fired up because this is the way we're supposed to be thinking as brewers, right? We're always trying to like factor everything in. I love that. I love that, man. Ill-gotten grains. There's definitely a lull in the craft beer industry. What would create a resurgence? People creating compelling hospitality experiences. Yeah. I don't think it's the liquid. I don't think we're telling the story wrong necessarily. I think people need to have an amazing experience when they walk into your place. When I consult with people, and I'm actually going out to Boston this weekend for a consult. When I consult with people, one of the first things I say to them is, take your beer out of the equation. You're selling beer. Okay. You have a spot that sells alcohol. Why do I want to be in your four walls compared to somebody else's? And the alcohol, the quality of your alcohol can't be one of the answers. You have to create a compelling hospitality experience. I just had a wonderful conversation with Jen Talley, and you need to go listen to it. Honestly, it warms my heart. I loved that conversation with that woman. It was awesome. And she was somebody that was formative for me coming up through listening, reading her book, listening to podcasts with her. And I just love her worldview on beer. But, one of the things that I think we lost on the hospitality side is the passion for what we're doing from a hospitality standpoint. We need to have compelling reasons to get people coming back to your place. And yeah, it can't be just talking points. It can't be just saying, oh, this is what we're about. Don't tell me about it. Be about it. You know what I mean? That's my quick hot take, Ill-Gotten. Ill-Gotten, by the way, I've learned an incredible amount from you. I'm incredibly grateful for your information. Ill-Gotten, thank you very much. That makes me feel good. Very much so, genuinely. Benjamin, we run out of sparge water we run our sparge water through Heatex to sterilize for knockout later in the day. Yes. Add that, Benjamin. Yes, absolutely. That is one of the ways to do it. Yes. Yep. Indeed. Well, listen, everybody. This has been an absolute blast. I love doing this. So anyways, thank you so much to everybody in the chat. Shout out to Bobby and all the other people that support me through the YouTube format at $2.99 a month. I really, really appreciate that stuff. I'm really passionate about trying to create content that helps everybody make better beer, but also for people on thinking about the pro side, on the pro side, trying to help people make better choices, more informed choices, and trying to facilitate opportunities for growth. My little tagline is helping brewers grow. I very much believe in it. It was popping in here, man. This really warms my heart. It feels really good. Charlie Papazian versus John Palmer in a boot drinking competition. Who wins? Palmer all day. Palmer all day. The godfather of homebrewing. CPAPs, I'm sorry, brother, but John Palmer has my heart. John Palmer, brewer, author, lover. Salty Brewer, good to see you. Cheers, man. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for listening. Dig back in the podcast on Spotify or wherever you find podcasts. Thanks to my sponsor, Blickman. Again, I'm full of gratitude that you guys are all here. Keep an eye out on Instagram and all that for the schedule. Always drop me those questions. Be good to your people, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.
This feeling's deeper than an ocean, with a groove that's beating harder than my heart. So baby, now just hear me out. No, don't fear this emotion, 'cause you can't stop the fire once it starts. Oh, I'll be there for you, with the love to get you through the night. Yeah. And I'll be there for you whenever